tell friends, it's better to introduce someone in 3 lines than 3 paragraphs. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank Shruti for giving me this opportunity. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I've been told that I should talk for an hour or so, including interaction, on technology, innovations, and leadership as it relates to teachers, training, mentoring, and all of that. I've been working on education-related issues for the last 7-8 years. And I'm convinced that education is going through a major crisis, at least in the Western world. If there was one next financial crisis after home loans, I believe it is going to be education loans. In the US, for example, there is more than $1.2 trillion worth of US government-backed, to some extent, student loans. And a lot of it could run into default. Mainly because the education has turned out to be too expensive. It takes $30,000, $40,000 to get a degree. And when you get a degree, it's hard to get a job nowadays. So education is on everyone's agenda. Education is going through major change because learning models are changing rapidly. Kids don't learn the way I learned 60, 70 years ago. Today, teacher doesn't need to create content and deliver content anymore. But almost all schools are designed for teachers to spend 80% of the time in creating content and delivering content. If you really want teachers to be a mentor, and Shruti and I have been talking about this for a while, because I can get best of the best to create content, and I can get it delivered in any fashion I want. So what do I really need teacher for? We've also sort of proven now, and there was a big study done at Stanford 15 years ago, that kids learn more from each other than from teacher. Another big sort of learning. I give this example. I have a 2-year-old granddaughter who Skypes me every day, okay, on her own. As a 2-year-old kid, hardly speaks. And then she would say, Dada, play drum. So I had to play drum. And then she'll go do something, and then she'll come back and stop playing drum. And she knows that this guy lives in virtual space. And she's pretty comfortable with grandfather only in virtual space, because I hardly get to see them. Yeah. And their reflexes are very different. I mean, whenever you have a problem with your TV, the best thing to do is turn your remote control to your kid, and they know how to fix it. Yeah. So they are sort of brought up in an environment where reflexes are very different. I remember when my kids were very young, almost 30, 35 years ago, you take them to arcade games in those days. You put in a quarter, and they immediately start playing games, and I would be reading instructions, and by the time I'm done reading instructions, the game is over. I think it is that aspect of customer that we have not taken into focus. So when we design all these education policies and everything, customer is not in the focus. The customer has changed completely. And there is a very serious problem today in education system. If I was to design a university of 2020, it will look very different than any of these campuses that you see today. First of all, you don't need 50 acres to build a campus. You don't have to build a campus the way we build today. It may be a 5-star hotel with sort of little open space for kids to interact. I might even have classes in shopping centers, Starbucks, scheduled classes, saying 6 kids will go to Starbucks between 9 to 10 for a class on biotech. And it's all going to happen. There's a lot of conversation going on today on the future of education, and as a result, future of teacher. Unfortunately, when we think of education today, we automatically assume duster, blackboard, chalk, teacher, classroom, textbook, grades, exams, certificate. None of these things matter anymore. Today we give certificate for exit. I believe tomorrow you'll give certificate for entry. Exit may not have certificate at all. But these are all wide ideas, and people really don't know how to deal with it. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about technology, innovations, and then the kind of leadership you need. These are 3 of the 12 verticals that Shruti talks about, which relate to converting teacher into a mentor. None of the teachers today are equipped to be mentors. They are only equipped to deliver content that they have been delivering over and over again. I had a teacher at Pitroda who used to take great pride in the fact that his notes have not changed for 20 years. And that was considered to be a great quality. Okay. So we are still living in that era where education is a manufacturing process. If Henry Ford landed up today in this world in 2013, the only place Henry Ford would find production, manufacturing method, is really in education. Nowhere else. Everywhere else it is economy of scope and not economy of scale. Education is a factory where you bring in 600 kids in one class, go through all the same lecture, same stuff, same exam, and then some kind of grading, and then 400 come out. Or maybe 350 come out. Okay. That process is completely obsolete. What to learn, when to learn, how much to learn is going to be very critical option for individual. All these vertical silos of chemistry, physics, biology, psychology, philosophy don't mean anything anymore. I've been saying in the US now for the last 4 or 5 years that if I had a kid today, I would never send that kid to school. Forget it. Because if the kid went to school, you will have a hell of a problem de-learning what you have learned before you are productive to the society. The things we are being taught at times are really not very useful at workplace. Most of our engineering graduates that I deal with can't write, can't read, can't collaborate, and at times can't comprehend. But they are great engineers. So how do you get productivity out of them? Soft skills are becoming very critical. Collaboration skills are extremely important nowadays because everything we do today requires a great deal of collaboration. Everything we do today is multidisciplinary and is happening faster than ever before because of computing power. We have the tools, but we just don't use it. On the other hand, if you look at the use of IT in the last 20 years, even more than 20 years, IT has produced very little gains in 2 areas, education and health. Industry has started seeing the benefits of IT in terms of productivity, efficiency, cost reductions. Even governments are beginning to see the benefits of IT because of massive databases and correlation and all that. But education and health, in spite of spending billions, have gotten very little. No university said that I computerize and tuition has gone down. No university said that I computerize and the productivity has gone up or the quality of students have improved. I sit on the boards of several universities in US, and at all of the board of directors meetings, the main discussion focuses on fundraising. There's very little discussion on students or quality of students or their education. It's all about fundraising. We need more money, this is the budget, who's going to raise money, set up a fundraising committee, and it just goes on and on. Okay, everybody has to donate $10,000 a year. It's all dumb stuff, but that's what everybody does. And that's considered very elitist thing to do. Okay. And all these great guys sit on the board, 50, 60 people, and they're, well accomplished, senior, rich people. And the discussion only centers around that. So in this kind of an ecosystem, how do you transform education substantially? It's not happening anywhere. Everybody knows what needs to be done. Nobody is ready to bite the bullet. So you have little experiments here, little experiments there. You have, University of Phoenix. You have some other experiments going on. But none of the governments are really willing to bite the bullet and say, scrap this system, begin to question who decided it should take 4 years to get a degree. Why is everybody taking 4 years to get a degree? The whole world follows 4-year degree program. China, India, Brazil, Russia, US. I don't know who came up with the idea. Whosoever did must have been a very smart guy. Same, why does it take 2 years to get a master's? Okay. So I think it is about time to question the very foundation of education. What is education? Can you really learn more in your backyard about botany? When I was growing up, we had so many interesting trees in Orissa. I was in a very small little tribal village in Orissa. Never took interest in what those trees are or what those stones were or, what was local, mica. We could dig about 12 inches in the land and find sheets of mica all over. Nobody understood what this thing was, how to analyze, what is it. There was no curiosity of that kind. We just played with it. Because the general thinking was that if you want to learn, go to school. You can't learn anywhere else. As opposed to saying learning is everywhere, all around you. Learning is not only in your backyard, but also with your friends, with your uncle, with your grandfather and neighbor and panwala and everywhere. There is something very interesting to learn. So learning has become a big industry with a lot of vested interest. Huge industry. I mean, some of these professors, my colleagues, make, $250,000. I don't know what they do. Some do good research, and some just teach same thing over and over again, and they think their load is very high. They get 3 months off every year. They teach same course, maybe 2 courses a year, and then they do so-called research. I don't know. Okay. So I am beginning to really attack this whole paradigm. But the biggest resistance comes from 2 groups. One, teachers' associations. They don't want to change, like every other place. When I tried to reform telecom in India, I had 23 unions, and the biggest resistance came from unions. Nobody wants to change. Because their logic is very simple. Then we had 2 million lines, and we had 500,000 employees in India. So their equation was, for every 4 telephone line, you need 1 employee. 500,000 employees, 2 million telephone lines. So I was going to increase telephone lines from 2 million to 25 or 20 million by year 2020. That was the plan then. And everybody said, are you crazy? Their idea was, if there are 20 million lines, we'll have 5 million employees. Okay. That's very simple logic. And they were fighting, saying, how can you get so many people? I said, no, you are completely on the wrong track. I don't want to hire anybody. I want to reduce number of people from 500 to 200,000, and then increase number of lines from 2 million to 20 million. It's just unthinkable. Everybody says, are you crazy? Today we have 900 million telephones in India. And the number of employees have gone down, at least at BSNL, to 250,000. So similar shake-up is going to come to education. Get ready. I think it's all there. But the vested interests are huge because a lot of political people control education everywhere. It's not just in India. Directly, indirectly, everywhere. Education is highly politicized subject, and there is a lot of interest in controlling it. And as a result, it becomes very difficult to change. In India, we set up a National Knowledge Commission. We spent 5 years looking at 5 aspects of knowledge. Access to knowledge, which begins with languages, translations, libraries, portals, networks, reservations, quotas, affirmative action programs. Then all knowledge concepts, school education, vocational education, higher education, distance learning, open courseware. How do we send more of our kids into college, math, science? How do we get more PhDs? Then we looked at the whole process of creating knowledge. Who creates knowledge? How knowledge is created? Entrepreneurship, patents, copyright, trademarks. Finally, we also looked at application of knowledge in agriculture, health, small and medium-scale industries. And finally, we looked at use of knowledge in governance. So we looked at about 27 different subjects. On each subject, we would have working group of domain experts, people who have done some work, sometimes 10, sometimes 20, sometimes 40 people. On knowledge network, we had almost 40 people. They will spend 8-9 months debating, discussing, arguing, and come back with set of documents, so-called white paper, which will then be debated by the Knowledge Commission, membership of about 9 people then. And the output of all our discussion would be a 3-page note to the Prime Minister, saying we recommend following 10 things. It's very simple to read, not very complicated, and then if you want to read, you have a 50-page document somewhere. We submitted about 300 different recommendations on 27 subjects. Some of it is being implemented, some of it is resisted, some of it is, in the back burner. And everybody knows this is good. Nobody says this is not a good idea. So it would be good for someone to say, look, I don't like this idea, scrap it. Then you can deal with it. But when everyone says it's a good idea, we should do it and don't do it, it's very difficult to deal with. And we are doing it, they would say. So education reform in India today is stuck from my viewpoint. But every time I talk to them, they'll say, no, it's going on, very good, everything is happening. Just to give an idea, one of the recommendations related to innovation universities. Okay. We said we will set up 14 universities. So my idea then was that we will set up 14 different ways to manage university structure. It's not 14 universities on innovations. It is 14 different ideas of universities that we will try it out. And out of that will emerge maybe 1 or 2 or 3 different new ways 20 years down the road, not now. And then we would say, look, now this is the model for the next few 100 years going forward. That was the idea. Nobody understood it. Every time I talked, everybody said, yep, we get it. And then something happens after that. And they'll go back and say, we want university on innovation. Okay, and I said, no, we don't want university on innovation. Then somebody said, I have a better idea. Why don't we make existing university innovation university? Okay. And this debate is going on still after 5 years. Okay. And every time there is a major meeting, and if I get involved, I explain, everybody says, great, we understand it finally. Okay. And then you wait for 3 months, back to normal. What basically they are saying is, we don't want to change. In a nice way. It's like I had this plan to get rid of Nadawali file in the government. The government has RTI, right to information, but the information is locked up in Nadawali file. So I've been saying, look, until you celebrate the death of Nadawali file, you are not going to reform this government. Okay, so we have designed this software, which is open source, and it opens file, and all very interesting way of dealing with sort of regular analog manual file into digital format. Everybody loves this software, everybody likes the user interface, everybody wants to do it now. Nobody's doing it. Been there for 3 years. So finally I had this secretary who was in charge of it, said, Mr. Pitrodaan, this is a great idea, but we need a trial. I said, okay. So he said, we're going to start trials. I said, how long will it take? He said, 7 years. So the Secretary of Government of India. I said, well, what you're telling me is you don't want to do it, which is okay. The resistance is just too much. So I write a letter to Cabinet Secretary, I'll talk to PM, and I talk to Montek, and so that 5 guys in Planning Commission will use, 3 guys in Prime Minister's office will use. But nobody wants to convert Nadawali file into digital file. Judiciary. We have 32 million court cases pending. And we want to computerize all the court cases. You go to Delhi court, there are 50 rooms like this, full of files. I mean, files meaning up to there. Okay. And if you need somebody's file, they have to take a little ladder and go find it. Okay. There is no way you can find anybody's file. Yeah. Because that's the system. So we digitize everything and put it in a box about that big. And all of the Delhi court files are in the box now. Yeah. Nobody wants to computerize courts. Because if you computerize courts, you can't manipulate. If you have manual, you can just change a little bit here and there. Sometimes you go at midnight and pull a file and just do something. Nobody knows. So there's a huge resistance everywhere. Look, I want to see every professor's face. Because then I can judge, I want to take his course or her course or not. And I may have biases, that's okay, but that's my bias. I want to see their background. I want to see what did they do before I take their course. Okay. Nobody wants to do it. So this is the background from where I come from. Okay. Huge resistance, tremendous potential, but no hope in sight. Yeah. Because the customer is not demanding. Okay, customer is saying, okay, theek hai, chalta hai. I talk to all these kids all the time. Okay. And customer is just not enlightened enough to demand change. Okay. The other day I gave a talk to some 500 IIT students or few hundred on video. I talked like this for about an hour. And a couple of kids got very excited, and one guy said, look, I'd never heard of you. I said, great. He said, but you talk very well, and you should be spending all your time talking to students like us and promoting these ideas. I said, look, I have a job to do. I can't be talking to everybody. I just happen to have some time, so I talk to you. But I said, thanks for the compliment, but can I ask you something? He said, yeah. I said, what class you are in? He said, 3rd year of electrical engineering. I said, your computer? He said, yeah. I said, you know how to Google? He said, yeah. I said, before coming to listen to Sam Pitroda, did you Google him? He said, no. I said, if I was in your position, I would Google the guy first. Say, who am I going to listen to? I said, change your mind. You have all the tools. Okay? When I go to meet somebody that I don't know of, I Google the guy. I know everything about that person. Male, female, their background, family, education, interests, references, because then I can relate to the conversation. That tool was not available. Now it's available. Nobody uses it. You will hardly see anybody, enlightened, educated person, Google the other person he is going to meet. And I can give you 50 tools like this available today. We all have it, but we are so conditioned to do things one way. That logic doesn't make sense. We don't make decisions based on logic. We never make decisions based on logic or productivity or efficiency. It's just some weird, emotional context we come up with, and we keep on doing same thing over and over again. And then we learn and we get a PhD and we write papers and we do research. Don't mean a thing. Okay. Look at the amount of education material and research going on all over the world, and look at the amount of change going on. So many people are doing so many research. Do you really see the benefits? You should see the benefits immediately. It's all about mindset. Okay. So now, having set the stage, let me talk a little bit about these three things: technology, innovations, and leadership. Teachers need to learn a lot more about new tools and new technology. Teacher in psychology, teacher in English, teacher in philosophy also needs to have the same set of tools. You can't say, I don't know computers. There is no such thing anymore. It's like saying, I don't know pencil and paper. It's at that level today. It is so pervasive now that you have to know technology. That's a requirement. What is computer? Why computer? How does it work? Printer, input, output, memory, everything you have to know. You don't have to know how it is designed, but you have to know what it is, because it's a tool. You don't know how pencil is made. Nobody knows the grade of lead in this. But we know it's pencil. Okay. I think we are at a point we need to educate all our teachers on technology. It may take 6 months, and this is the overview of IT mainly. When I say technology for teachers, it's only IT, fundamentally. There are a lot of other stuff which is related to verticals that I'm sure they know. So when you look at your education courses today, they immediately focus on verticals and not focus on horizontals. This is a horizontal. This is pervasive. So every education material must have course on technology. What is IT? Why IT? And there are a series of things. We know how to do this. You can, go Google and find out, 10 courses on IT that teachers should know. Package them and say, here is your 6 months program or 6 weeks program or a week program on IT. And there could be different modules. Yeah. Teachers today need to know about Facebook, Twitter, search engines. All of this is basic. Okay, it's not high tech. Okay. Unfortunately, people just don't even know how to operate their mobile phones. How do we educate our teacher in basic technology is a huge challenge. I had a long conversation with Hillary Clinton on this. I said, look, you guys are all trying to come up with this India-US education programs where, we have 7 experts go to US and 10 experts from US come here, and we have this great dialogue, and then nothing happens. Okay. Rather than that, I said, why don't we just create a platform where we, between India and US, decide to train 1 million teachers in the world. And that's big enough thing of interest. So you create a little exchange where a young kid, 15-year-old, would say, I'm available to teach teacher what computer is. And someone like me, 70-year-old, would say, yep, I want to learn. I want to sign up. Reverse the role. Student becomes teacher and teacher becomes student. And do it on a very large scale. So some guy in Bihar can log in and say, oop, I want to take a course. Who's going to teach me? And a little guy in, Atlanta or, in Africa will say, hey, I'll teach. Doesn't have to be Indian. Okay. Anybody can teach anybody about computers. You can even say, I just want to learn about Facebook. I just want to learn about making my own website. I just want to learn about how to, handle my pictures. There are a lot of aspects of it. Nobody wants to do things like this. And I get puzzled. So her first response was, great idea, Sam, we should do it. Talk to my, such and such. So I know that it's, not happening. Yeah. But a lot of interest. Okay. Nobody says a dumb idea, scrap it, I'm not interested in it, it's not working. Then I'll be very happy. Okay, then go look for another idea. Okay. So teaching computers, IT skills to all the teachers is a priority number one today. You cannot be a teacher today and not understand what this stuff is. Okay. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are. You could be teaching a second grader, fifth grader, or you could be an advisor to a PhD student. You've got to have minimum computer literacy. And it has to be compulsory. Maybe teachers have to take an exam. Maybe. I don't know. Saying, yep, I can push some buttons and I can Google search and I can do this and I can do that. Okay. No teachers association would accept this. Yeah. And to me, it's like saying I know ABCD. I can spell. It's that important today. Okay. There is very little concern, not only in India but everywhere on this. Yeah. It is no longer a luxury. It is no longer urban elitist thing to do. Okay. It is no longer techie. It is just like paper and pencil. Then the thing is, once you understand a little bit about technology, you got to innovate. You got to think differently. You got to really think out of the box. Saying, now that I have learned this tool, how do I use it? Can I give my homework on computers? Can I teach math on cell phone? You can do that. I had a friend in Phoenix, professor, and he said, my main problem in one part of Phoenix is that there are African American kids who don't go to school beyond 7th grade, have no interest. And we were wondering, what is this magic? 7th grade. So we found out that once they learn little bit of math, enough to deal with their drug business, they are done. Okay. Very interesting. They know enough math to do all this stuff, and they are done. Okay. So we said, they all use cell phone. So we came up with a method to teach math on cell phone, get them interested in math, so they move back. Now this is completely out of the box thinking. I have a daughter who is now working on sort of special games for the girls to take interest in math. So she goes into a class, girls between maybe 12, 14, and she says, first time when I interview, most of the girls say, we have no interest in math. Nobody is interested in math. They're interested in art, language and all this stuff. And she said, after a day of playing games, everybody says, I want to be a mathematician. Everybody, not 80%. 100% of the girls said, wow, what an interesting thing to do. Nobody told us that this is what math is all about. Thinking differently and, massaging numbers or whatever she does. I don't know exactly what she does. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. So why this game is only designed for girls?
Because she's only interested in girls. That's that simple. Okay. Fine. You can blame her for that. Okay. But that's her interest. Okay. You can do it for boys. This is very Indian. This is very Indian. Identifying problem people in India believe it requires a lot of talent. Okay, let me do it, okay? Because people take great pride in India in identifying problems. And I tell them, look, you don't require talent to identify problems. Nor does it require talent to solve a problem, to find a solution. The talent is really required to go do it against all the odds. Okay? So if she's solving problem for the girl child, you solve it for the boy child. Okay? But don't worry about her. Why is she not doing this? Let her do what she's doing now. See, when I came to fix telephones here in 80s, general complaint was, this guy is clueless, which was true also. Okay? Saying, why is he trying to solve telephone problems only for urban elite? We should work on agriculture. We have problems with water, sanitation. India is hunger. I used to tell them, I don't know how to do that. Find somebody else to do it. Okay? I know how to fix phones. That's what I'm going to do. I know you can't eat phones. Okay? I know that. Okay? I know that hungry people won't make a phone call. That's not my problem. Tough luck. Okay? Find somebody else. That should be the attitude. Okay, saying if I do one little thing, let me do it and do it well. Okay, so basic issue I find then, based on all the things I used to listen to people then, is that if you're trying to go north, people will say, don't go north, go south. If you're trying to go south, they'll say, just think about going east. Basically what they're saying is, don't make a move.
So, I'm sorry, just wanted to share. So, my concern was not to identify the problem. Actually, since morning we are talking about a lot of problems. But
we are having informal discussions, so I hope you don't mind my being a little funny.
That's what I'm, just wondering, like, okay, so if something is very good, which is beneficial for everyone, why it's not for everyone? Yeah. So I had a problem, as an individual, and it's my personal opinion. Whenever we talk about, when we talk about the gender equality and all, in every aspect, so why not on those aspects? And
why not?
Which is not from, not from this topic, but when we are talking about the education, that's also part of education. So what we are teaching in this society. Yeah. So that's something I, come from, and then that was the intention to ask this question. And at the same time, I am also, agreeing to what you are saying. Like in India, we lot of time talk about the problem, but we don't talk about the intervention and the,
No, the basic problem is talk about. My problem is talk about. Okay? See, I'm not an expert. Okay? So I'm not a social scientist or anything. I'm just saying, as a layman, whatever I feel like saying. In India, everything is divided into two things, Brahminian and Sudra. Science is about Brahminian science, Sudra science. Education is about Brahminian education, Sudra's education. Brahminian implying conversation. A great conversation on a subject. You think you have done your work. Because everybody thinks talking about work is work. Sudra's work is go get it done. Okay? So there will be great discussion on waste management. Nobody will pick a piece of paper on the floor. Okay?
Yeah.
So in India you will have PhD in electrical engineering, but I don't know why we can't design a plug that just fits properly. Indian plug never fits. I'm telling you, Indian plug, it just wiggles. Okay, so you put a little matchbox in it, or matchstick, then it's okay. I just don't understand. Okay? Because it is Sudra's work. Yeah. Nobody wants to pay attention. Yeah. Talking about work is work. Okay? That's how we are brought up. Okay? And I don't know how to change this, except just talk about it. Okay. Little sidetrack. Well, I forgot where I was.
The second part is innovation.
Yeah, okay. So you got to innovate. You got to do things differently. We are all conditioned to do things the way we do it. Okay. There is very little innovations going on. On one hand, there is a lot of poor people innovating in their own way. Jugaad and fixing this and fixing that. That's going on. You got to respect that. But a lot of this innovation doesn't scale. If it doesn't scale, Don't make sense in this country of 1.2 billion. You know. So you have a lot of jugaad, but very little scaling. And I have all kinds of views on these things. First, I've been saying for the last 25 years that the best brains in the world are busy solving problems of the rich, who really don't have problems to solve. As a result,